Deeper and deeper I go. I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I am pleased to present to you, along with yours truly, our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as we present Maghrib Heirs at Northwest Amexem, response to the Bolletino Sala, Stampa, Della Sede N 230330B. But before we begin, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Now we greet you, and we're so glad that you are here with us. Reggie?
Islam, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Wadi Makum, Bon Abort. We want to continue on the matter of concept, particularly for the people, because I think it is very, as you see things happening in the world, particularly what they're calling de-dollarization, that's happening and that's accelerating, and you're recognizing that many of your large box stores and what they call brick and mortar stores and malls are closing at an alarming rate, and people they'll use the cover up of theft and shoplifting as an excuse to cover up the reality. And the reality is that the dollar, and that's a subject matter in its own, which are the voucher systems to the Sister QV Trust, better known as Federal Reserve notes, legally known as private commercial paper, and are commonly known to the people as fiat. And because the nations of the earth, and specifically, as you already know, Russia, China, etc., are no longer having or possessing the private vouchers of the Jesuit order as a reserve currency. And on the public, they'll just simply say US dollar. But it's really private commercial paper. That's the lawful term for it. And so they're making a lot of other cover stories to cover up the fact that it is quickly collapsing. And it is wise for the people to be aware that those things are not unrelated to all of our welfare. All of what's happening to you now and what's been happening to you lately for the last few years, and what's going to be happening to you in the very near future, so that you're not alarmed. And I know that many people, don't put it together because they don't recognize the relationship. But one of the things, actually last month, when Dr. G brought to my attention the Seneca, area of the land of Nod, we call what you call New York, though most of the Aboriginals, we refer to that area as the land of Nod. And she talked about the artificial construct of the hybrid Europeans creating insane asylums, taking the people from the land, etc. And that inspired me to look at the Seneca, because remember the Oneida are part of the Seneca people, just in case people didn't know that. And when Dr. G brought that up to me, and she brought it up to me a couple of times, and then she showed me some information, some of which I knew about, but because it was a conversation, she made more detailed study on it. And so that inspired me to go on to that. And of course, one thing led to another, and I saw that as a great teaching opportunity, which is why we did the classes that we did the last couple of times, because it was a perfect teaching moment to put people in perspective, into real political perspective of what has been actually happening to us over the centuries. And because I know that they have been artfully and successfully um, creating the narrative of what they call racism as a distraction, pardon me, for the operations of the doctrine of discovery. And knowing that the people in general, not being taught the real history, they would follow the narrative that the economic and political things and the massive jailings of our people, the breaking up of our families, etc. The family courts under the guise of helping our families were really part of the doctrine of discovery with the purpose and intent of actually breaking our families up by giving the Aboriginal women checks to get their men out the house. And that's been the last 60 or so years. And it has, the damage that it has done is quite apparent. But people don't necessarily look at it that way. All of these things have to do with the doctrine of discovery. And now that the civilized world, as we've been telling you for actually years, that they would stop buying the U.S. Treasury bond, and that deals with all the derivatives and everything that you see in the stock market that people don't even relate to themselves. So that's going on. And so when I went to Capitol Heights in Washington D.C. area past Tuesday to do a class with many of the consuls down there and many new visitors and some one of the grand sheiks and his wife and his children from the Moorish Science Temple, a couple of them, and we had a very popular rapper that came down there and opened up with some really good music, really good rap, and a lot of new people. So I talked to also Brother Ryan, and Ryan in his battles against the doctrine of discovery, where they've been trying to take his home in foreclosure, have been fighting them for the last 5 years. And some of the things that I had been sharing with him with the motu proprio and with the civil orders directly from Pope Francis to Barack H. Obama, he continued that study and he brought in the Bolletino, right? And that's a bulletin, right, from the desk of the Pope. And it's actually, you can't see it, it's printed right there, right in the corner, and you'll see exhibit. And that was introduced into the court with this case. And he's been pretty successful, and they haven't yet been able to, under the discovery, throw him out of his house. Now, one day I might just have him just speak maybe on the phone to tell you some of his experience. But he shared with me the Bolletino the other day. And so that was just simply a continuation of the inspired conversation that Dr. G had made in relationship, to the recent claims by the Pope of Rome, etc. And so this is right in harmony with that. And I thought that if I brought this to Dr. G and just shared it with her, how she always looks at stuff pretty deeply, and it comes up right off the top of her head. And so we chose this to actually look at the information. It's a little bit more information on Sharia and also the Bolletino. And this is where the Pope of Rome, or from the Descasteries of Rome. And when you're talking about the Descasteries, you're simply in another way, because it's kind of broad. It deals with the judges and basically what you'll call your first line, or your more or less high class citizens, that they call it, but mainly with the administrators and mainly judges. And so when you're talking about all the judges, etc., people who don't really understand the casteries, it doesn't dawn on them that all of the people who claiming to be judges at North America under the jurisdiction of the United States are actually part of the Roman order. And as we've been informing you for years, that the operations of the court system operating on the land with civil jurisdiction, etc., is actually run from Fleet Street, England, via the Circle Church and Chancery. These things you know. So when you hear the Pope talking about the casteries, understand it includes all those people. And by people not knowing that the Pope of Rome and the dicasteries actually own the United States, and this is where people need to understand, it's not the land, it's the corporation operating on the land. And via the implication, this is where the people have assumed the psychosis of the dum diversus, intercadera divina, the sister QV, etc., that the Pope, making claim ownership on the lives, the land, and the souls of the people. However, the Bolletino, Sala, Stampa, Della, Santa, Sede, is really sort of like an apology. And we want to share it with you because it actually should be made public. And it's not an issue of supporting or anything. It's to bring people up to snuff to the real politics. Because we're well aware that most of the people don't know that this is the highest office in the world dealing with Western state governments. And because most of the people have not been aware of the relationship, they have not been keeping up with the real political operations of what you call men in the shadows. And so men in the shadows has actually been the popes of Rome. And then some people have done some research. They thought it was just the Queen of England. And then others that did some research just thought it was the Circle Church and Chancery. And that's really the Trinity network that people often see when you see the shield for Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, and you see their flag, and you'll see that shield, and then you see the 3 stars. What that represents is the Vatican, City of London, not London, because you need to understand the distinction. City of London, so all of the jurisdictional finances of the commercial paper is governed from there, in connection with the Circle Church and Chancery, and that is your barristers, or what is known as your Pharisees and Sadducees, that are known as Esquire, Bar Association, British Bar Association, known as the British Accredited Registry, and its subdivision operating at North America, known as the American Bar Association. And then, of course, Washington, D.C. So we're telling you or showing you the political hierarchy that's actually operating in the world, because most people don't make that relationship, though people in political office and people that belong to all secret societies have always been well aware of that. And of course, you would know that why, from a political perspective, it always been held by themselves to control the narrative, because they do not want people to make those connections of the real politics. But because of the pressures that are coming upon them, and many of you all know about what that last year when they so-called there was a sudden fire at the Vatican type thing and a hole in the back. That's another story. You all can do some research on that and understand that was no wildfire, military action. And with the warrants, etc., put on the bishopric, etc., this Bolletino is essentially from the Pope of Rome, and it's in its nature apologetic. And I want to take this opportunity because actually Dr. G inspired me, deliberately or not deliberately, inspired me to really follow this path and look at the teaching opportunity. So, Dr. G, can I turn this over to you and you share the Bolletino to the people and make commentary on it, please?
Certainly. Um, well, the Bolletino is similar to, well, it's a bulletin.
Hmm.
So it's a
Essentially.
essentially a bulletin that's from Italy. It's called, and there is um, a typo. I forgot to change the screen thing,
But
but
that's all right.
it's Stampa and
It's
not
Stampa.
and not Stamps.
The computer did
Yeah.
correction, but it was not a correction. So that's
So
Stampa.
Stampa. So, but anyway, this is a notice of coming out from the from Rome and from the Descasteries that Grand Sheik spoke about. This particular one was released on the 30th of March,
Hmm.
2023. So and its reference numbers N230330 small lowercase b
For the file.
for the file. So, you're going to want to look, and it comes from the Holy See press office. So it's like a press release.
Yes.
The Bureau de Presse du Saint Serge is, all their French names, but it's called the Bolletino, Bollettino, Sala Stampa della Santa Sede. Thursday, the 30th of March, 2023. Joint statement of, now Grand Sheik just mentioned who the Descasteries were, the judges, the high officials, and so forth. Joint statement of the Descasteries for culture and education and for promoting integral human development on the quote unquote doctrine of discovery. Number one, infidelity to the mandate received from Christ. And they putting it on Christ.
Hmm.
The Catholic Church strives to promote universal fraternity and respect for the dignity of every human being. Number two, for this reason, in the course of history, the popes have condemned acts of violence, oppression, social injustice, and slavery, including those committed against indigenous peoples. There have also been numerous examples of bishops, priests, women, and men, religious and lay faithful rather, who gave their lives in defense of the dignity of those peoples. Number three, at the same time, the respect for the facts of history demands an acknowledgement of the human weakness and failings of Christ's disciples. They're like, we only human. In every generation, many Christians have committed evil acts against indigenous peoples for which recent popes have asked forgiveness on numerous occasions. In number four, in our day, a renewed dialogue with indigenous peoples, especially with those who profess the Catholic faith, has helped the church to understand better their values and cultures. With their help, the church has acquired a greater awareness of their sufferings, past and present, due to the expropriation of their lands, which they consider a sacred gift from God and their ancestors, as well as the policies of forced assimilation promoted by the governmental authorities of the time, intended to eliminate their indigenous cultures. As Pope Francis has emphasized, their sufferings constitute a powerful summons to abandon the colonizing mentality and to walk with them side by side in mutual respect and dialogue, recognizing the rights and cultural values of all individuals and peoples. In this regard, the church is committed to accompany indigenous peoples and to foster efforts aimed at promoting reconciliation and healing. Number five, it is in this context, listening to indigenous peoples, that the church has heard the importance of addressing the concept referred to as the quote unquote doctrine of discovery. The legal concept of quote unquote discovery was debated by colonial powers from the 16th century onward and found particular expression in the 19th century jurisprudence of courts in several countries, according to which the discovery of lands by settlers granted an exclusive right to extinguish, either by purchase or conquest, mostly conquest, the title to or possession of those lands by indigenous peoples. Certain scholars have argued that the basis of the aforementioned quote unquote doctrine is to be found in several papal documents, such as the bulls Dum Diversus, the Romanus Pontifex, and Inter Caetera, which Grand Sheik you have spoke to us about for years and years and years. 6, the doctrine of discovery is not part of the teaching of the Catholic Church. Historical research clearly demonstrates that the papal documents in question, written in a specific historical period and linked to political questions, have never been considered expressions of the Catholic faith. At the same time, the Church acknowledges that these papal bulls did not adequately reflect the equal dignity and rights of indigenous peoples. The Church is also aware that the contents of these documents were manipulated for political purposes by competing colonial powers in order to justify immoral acts against indigenous peoples that were carried out at times without opposition from ecclesiastical authorities. The Church did nothing to stop it. It is only just to recognize these errors, acknowledge the terrible effects of the assimilation policies and the pain experienced by indigenous peoples, and ask for pardon. Furthermore, Pope Francis has urged, quote unquote, never again can the Christian community allow itself to be infected by the idea that one culture is superior to others, or that it is legitimate to employ ways of coercing others. Number 7,
Excuse me.
in no uncertain terms, the church's magisterium upholds the respect due to every human being. The Catholic Church therefore repudiates those concepts that fail to recognize the inherent human rights of indigenous peoples, including what has become known as the legal and political, quote unquote, doctrine of discovery. Number 8, numerous and repeated statements by the Church and popes uphold the rights of indigenous peoples. For example, in the 1537 bull Sublimis Deus, Pope Paul III wrote, "We define and declare that the said Indians and all other peoples who may later be discovered by Christians are by no means to be deprived of their liberty or the possession of their property, even though they may be outside the Christian faith, and that they may and should freely and legitimately enjoy their liberty and possession of their property, nor should they be in any way enslaved. Should the contrary happen, it shall be put, or it should be null and have no effect," end quote. And lastly, number 9, more recently, the Church's solidarity with indigenous peoples has given rise to the Holy See's strong support for the principles contained in the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The indigenous implementation the implementation of those principles would improve living conditions and help protect the rights of indigenous peoples, as well as facilitate their development in a way that respects their identity, language, and culture.
Now, I wanted you to read that because I already know, because you think on multiple levels and you can see through things. Now, notice how they talk about, they start apologizing in the 1500s.
Yeah.
1500s.
Yeah.
1500s,
Yeah.
apologizing. Now they're apologizing again. And one of the things that you brought up, Dr. G, when you were sharing some of the analysis with us, you were talking about, the continuation of the Doctrine of Discovery. And as we talked about the civil orders letter from the Pope to Obama, that you've always shared with the people over the House of Reawakening Minds for years. And one of the things that I wanted to give you note when I called you before I came down, and why I wanted you to see that, because I wanted you to see the discrepancies and how they're trying to blame Christ for actually their work, and then try to act like the bulls that he mentioned, which clearly state their agenda, didn't come from the church by implication, and yet having to admit it came from the church, and then say, well, they misunderstood it type thing.
Well, let me say this, and this is just how I feel, and you can coerce out of me whatever you want after this. But where I have a problem, I have many problems with this.
Don't we?
There are many problems.
Don't we?
Not only with this, but even with the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People.
And the lack, I just want to interject this, and go ahead, as a mother, as a woman, and the nature of woman to protect her offspring, which would include her husband, boyfriend. That's the nature of women. Just look at that nature and then compare that to what they're saying, and compare that to what we've been experiencing.
Well, first and foremost for me, and this has been my argument, and some folks acknowledge, yeah, you're right, and some folks, get excited about the Declaration and of the Rights of Indigenous People. I am hard pressed to believe that when that was signed, that they had us, and I'm talking about intentionally in mind, that you and I, folks that look like us, folks who they've already mislabeled and given us, other terms,
exactly.
Everything to separate us from
the main targets. That when you do the research, all the bulls from Intercatera Divina, all right, Dum Diversus, Romano Pontifex, etc. Right, Unum Sanctum. When you do those researches, you'll see that all of those bullets, destructive bullets, and this is in the record, their own documents, were mainly and primarily directed at Moors. It's documented. So when they try to allege today, in these days, that we weren't the target, the psychosis that's allowed them to get rid of that argument is because in the 1800s, and particularly with the Whiggamore Party, they started promoting the black codes. And so most of our people who have been controlled under the narrative of the General Education Board in Animal Husbandry say black, and it never thought that the Bullers was at the Moors, which is their pedigree. And this is one of the reasons why they've controlled the narrative to convince the people from childhood that black was the identity of the Moors who were defeated. And you notice how, like, for instance, when they talk about, as an example, Ferdinand and Isabella merging Aragon and Castile, right? And when they give the story in the school books here, what is it that they tell the people? When the Europeans, i.e., Aragon, Castile merged their kingdoms and defeated the Moors, after that, they were able to come into the Western Hemisphere. Now, as they teach the history, the Moors become blacks and Indians in the written script. And the Moors that they fought to get here, all of a sudden that history so-called disappear, or by reconstruction. And now Columbus sailing the ocean blue, etc., after the defeat of the Moors. And keep in mind, when they talk about Amerigo's Vespucci, Where does he sail from? The city of Cadiz, Moorish city. And then they try to say that America's named after. See the dynamics that people don't pay attention to? And I want to bring this to your attention and continue your analysis on and your critique on this.
Okay. Personally, most folks, getting folks indoctrinated, and you see a lot about whether they be Christ or Christian or whatever. So it was important for them, obviously, to indoctrinate the people into Christianity. We talked about it a couple shows, so we didn't go as deep as I wanted to go last time, but when we called it At the Edge of the Sword. And at the edge of the sword, the intention was we were going to talk about the fact that conversions from the
By
natural
force.
was by force, and it was normally either comply or be killed.
Yes.
And so just to stay alive, folks acquiesced and became Christians and gave up
Or
their
what they thought it was.
what they thought was Christian, gave up their
Culture.
their culture, and they knew what they were doing.
Their estates.
When I was in Bible college, I remember we were doing some different studies, and this was supposed to be it wasn't supposed to be a negative, but they informed us that as they would go into, like, the missionaries who would go into various countries, the Bible narrative, the biblical narrative would be tweaked if they were going into a remote country, so they knew that they found out what the language was and so forth, and they would create Jesus, and for them, they would have been the ones that crucified. It would have been their ancestors. They would tweak each
and play victim.
right, and play on the heartstrings, if you will, of the people. And besides the fact that they were going to either kill them or whatever, but they went in like missionaries of peace, but they were actually indoctrinating them in their own, reconstructive.
They came as peacemakers. They were really peace breakers.
Right, and so they did that. But back to my original, what I was going to say is that the fact that you don't see folks that look like us when the papers were documents were signed. Most of the folks that you saw, you thinking feathers and Shems, they on a reservation.
Shemites.
So unless we do something, we the people
set the record straight.
We the people set the record straight that we are the indigenous,
the main people, and the main target,
the main indigenous of Africa. And I think unless we collectively
speak up. Yes.
To that fact,
we will be buried in history.
Right, they're going to keep their, like, we've made the ones up there that we created happy.
Yes.
To heck with them, because they have too much to lose.
Yes.
If they acknowledge that we folks that look like you and us, we are those people that have been violated, have been mislabeled, have been murdered, have been stolen from, all of the things that they say, the sufferings that were put on those people.
We're the main target.
It was us. It was
always
you.
The main target.
And if we don't, and see that they got so many folks now Christianized. If I believe if a lot of Christians, if they were to read this and see that the Catholic Church, if you will, was behind admitting
the whole nature of the suffering.
To be a Christian was to be a conqueror.
That was the front. Remember this. Now, and this is, again, Dr. G, the same way they misrepresent and they're trying to blame their actions on Jesus, Jesus for Christ, and we made the mistake in the name of Christ, in other words, as if he sanctioned these activities. And this is back to, you have to always remind the people that when you do the research, these same people who claim to be Christian are really Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. They're really Constantinians who have been claiming to be Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like they can, just no different than they're warring all around the world, claiming to be America and Americans, aren't they?
Absolutely.
But they're actually the people who occupy America. They're not Americans. In other words, if you look at the patterns, they have been traditionally doing things in other people's names, even when they were battling among themselves, right, with the taxes from Great Britain. What did they do? The same thing they did at practice at the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia. They did what they call blackface and said that they were the indigenous people, and they threw the tea into the water, Boston Harbor. They haven't even changed the pattern. and they have buried us in history by misrepresentation.
Right.
And this is again in harmony with this and things that you have brought up in critique and analysis before, Dr. G. Why I remind people relative to perspectives. Look at the Dungy case in context, and you'll see the slander argument was that he wasn't Negro and black; he was a Moor, and that's when Lincoln was a lawyer. This was what, 1852, 1853, 1854, before the Dred Scott case, which is considered around the world as the model or the test case for the rights of citizenship, etc., in relationship to the United States Corporation Company and the people here, i.e., who they label Negro, black, and colored. No, and this is why, like, as we're talking over the years, Dr. G, why when we're making these analyses, that we put those documents together, it's because they buried the injuries of the people by having us thinking that, just like the Juneteenth thing. Now we can get into that too, but not at this time. The fact that people are even getting into that don't even know that that's based on a lie.
Absolutely, because like you said, with we might as well mention it because it's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I was at the bank today, mm-hmm. and the woman said, "Oh, we're not open on Monday," and somebody said, "What? It's a holiday," mm-hmm. and she was a modern European, mm-hmm. and she said Juneteenth, and I'm thinking, a lot of us who have enough sense are not celebrating that.
Exactly.
We're not celebrating that, but they get a day off. Everybody gets a day off. Like, you get a day off. You get a day off.
And you notice how the psychosis with us. And a lot of people don't think it that way. They look at it as that they're honoring us, right? Well, let's look at this. Every so-called holiday that they associate with us here at North America and Canada always have to do with someone they murdered, tortured, or hung, or something to do with our subjugation under the connotative title slavery. Nothing positive. Death and suffering. Now, a lot of people...
What holiday do we get? Seriously.
Death and suffering.
No. I'm just trying. I'm trying to think of what day comes up that has anything to do with it. Oh, Martin Luther King, MLK.
Well, they killed him. That's right. They killed him.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And now they're trying to do the Juneteenth thing. June.
It's like give them two.
Right. A lie.
Absolutely.
Right. A lie.
Right. Because
to avoid people from studying the 14th Amendment straw man that people who have been doing research are looking at now and not necessarily relating it to that very 14th Amendment.
That was what you call manumission. The Negro Act. So exactly. The manumission.
Exactly.
So no, there was not a freedom from slavery. There was a transfer
of property,
property and
of
status,
chattel property,
and it was
and
like
supported by the 14th Amendment, which implied liberties.
Right.
And
over rights.
Thank you.
We had rights. Why would we need liberties if we had rights?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, rights can't be given because governments have no rights to give.
That's right.
Governments are in place for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to secure what is known as the unalienable / divine rights naturally that belong to living beings. They cannot legislate it. They cannot give it. They only have the obligation to protect them. And this is back to even the psychosis that they've been promoting when, not unlike what's implied in this letter, as if they're giving you something, as opposed to ending their unpeaceful activities. Or their genocide.
Yeah. So there's so much. But back to this though. Back to the Bolletino. So I have a problem, y'all, with the fact that, while it sounds all good and all that, but no, it doesn't sound good. While to some, it may sound like, oh, they're finally admitting they did this.
That all this we've been calling racism has always been the doctrine of discovery.
But what they're doing is actually placating us, and they
Yes.
want us to forgive.
Accept
You
apologies
saw
for
the word,
hundreds of years
heard
of
the
genocide.
word pardon in it. So when you pardon somebody, you forgive them for their debt, their sin, their trespasses, whatever. We cannot pardon them because we need restoration.
Yes.
So they're not saying, and we're going to give them back the lands, the culture, all of the,
or teach them the truth about their native or nationality, because nativity is nationality. So if they call us the real native people of the land, then what did they take from the people? Their culture,
yes,
right? Their rights, their liberties, their capacity to make a living militarily, right? And that's the root of the poverty of these people. You see how these things are interconnected, that they conveniently don't interject? And our people to the day, in the communities that they're in, the poverty that we've been suffering for generations, we've assumed that we were poor because we were slaves, when the fact of the matter is we were poor because we were robbed through the government armies to support the doctrine of discovery, not knowing that the United States government was a political arm of the Descasteries.
Yeah.
And they enforced the doctrine of discovery and allowed the priesthood to stand in the background and appear that they had nothing to do with it. And the reality is, if you read what's being presented here, they're admitting that those governments and the magistrates were doing this stuff by virtue of the bulls that came from the church, but yet they're trying to distance themselves from
they're
their
saying
own bulls.
That the church
like Christ did it.
was in the background, not knowing that these
political
political entities were doing. But why did you introduce bullas that spoke to it?
Was the directive.
Which meant you had the authority.
Which was the directive. And what's very clear, Dr. G, and this is, again, even while people will see the clear evidence of the association, they still think, or have been generally thinking, and recognize the psychosis with this, and why politically they would always promote the psychosis of separation of church and state, because the state was actually their military arm, and they could stand back and look innocent, and the state would plunder for them. Then they get the benefit. And now that the world is turning on them, they want to act like they had none. It didn't really come from the church, and some people mistaken the message of Christ. And, please.
It absolutely did come from the church.
And again, recognize, Dr. G, even when, you're talking about the rights of indigenous people, which you talked about for years over the House of Reawakening Minds, the connection and the admission of the connection. And when the nations commanded that information be distributed to the public at all costs. You and I both know, to this day, when we introduce it to a lot of people at the House of some people never heard of it, and others read it and see it as interesting and have no idea of its connection to the doctrine of discovery as a response. And yet, now the Pope's talking about they support it. Now, remember, one of the major issues in the rights of indigenous people, international law, is that one of the things they say, these people have a right to a name and nationality. And now you see a lot of people talking about what the sovereignty and name and nationality has to do with us. To this day, doctrine of discovery is why they don't have it. And also why the Pope is apologizing. You notice how it's indirect, and they're trying to distance themselves from it, when all the actions that injured our people came from the church bullas. Unum sanctum.
Dum diversus.
Romanus Pontifex. Sister QV. Intercatera Divina. Etc. And those have been the genocide wars coming from the church against the Moors. Do all the history. And then, in order to cover it up, they start calling us Indians or indigenous people, which is not the pedigree name, but it's a classification so that the people don't start thinking that this all started with the popes of Rome genociding the Moors, etc., and coming and taking the estates under into Catera Divina. And I suggest that you all read all of the bullas, and you'll see directly the main target of all of those church bullas were against the Moors, who are now called Indians and blacks. Now that's the trap. Now again, when people start doing research, you'll see a lot of people writing books. Are the Indians really black? Are blacks really the Indians? You know, as they start doing research, when the real deal is that they're neither Indians or blacks, they're Moors. You see how the cover it gets buried?
Yeah, but see, here's my problem. There are peoples who have been given and have taken on and adopted for many, many years the titles of being Indians that do not look like us, that are not us necessarily, maybe an amalgamation because there was so much mixing, you know, during like say the Trail of Tears and a Trail of Tears and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that these people have, you know, they've endured. As a part of the deception, they put them on
as the view,
as they made them the image
and look at
of the indigenous, and then you know they scraped and did. But let me finish. They did what they did to them, and so they have been so injured, even though they created them and the injury. Platform. They're so injured now. They have a right to say, then now we're going to be free, but what they don't realize is what's not when I say they, I'm talking about the world doesn't know, and many of them are people right here.
Many of the world
like
knows,
us.
They don't talk about it.
Us, the ones that have been indoctrinated into Christianity and so forth, don't realize that the real indigenous people are us, our Moors, whatever you want to call us. They're us. That we did not come here on slave ships, on you know, tuna fish can. No, let me say this, but we need to get that message out to the broader Moorish community, the sleeping Moorish community, and those of us that know what time it is need to band together and put together a document that goes to
a documentary
and a document that goes forth to the Vatican and everybody else.
Open letter.
Open to acknowledge that we are the indigenous people who have been, you know, have had all of these injustices and come against us. We know that we are. We no longer accept the labels of Negro, Black, Colored, African American, and all the various things brands that they put on us. We are acknowledging who we are, and then everything that's in this bulletin and anything else. Now, not only we acknowledge that you acknowledge, but now we want a restoration.
Thank you. In other words, we don't need an apology. We need restoration.
Absolutely.
Now that's the truth. You know, and you notice, Dr. G, just like the letter to Obama, right? Civil orders. You notice how none of that kind of conversation was coming from the desk of the shopper until they started putting them world warrants out on them.
Yeah, well, I heard about them. You know,
which means heard about them, which means the general public, for the most part, have not been told about that. Meaning that's public and yet not public. And part of it is implicated indirectly in the executive orders that Trump put out in around 16 and 17, right, with the trafficking, child trafficking, and other things. And then you notice during a period of time when I forget which nation state it was immediately. It was actually in Europe where the Pope didn't go because they had warrants out on them.
Recently?
The last couple of years. Mm-hmm. It was known but not heavily published, you know. And this is why that these things are, how do you say, in the back of your mind with a few people who research, who find this stuff, distinguished from it just being commonly known by the public, if you get the whole point. And then even when you start seeing, when Anna von Rees, von Ritzenstein, von Letlow, Verbeck, private attorney in service to the Pope of Rome, assisted in drafting that letter directly to Barack Obama, and they tell you the history that the United States is not a country, but it is the property of the Vatican. And that's an admission, right? It's not a country, it's a private corporation, Vatican Crown Empire. So what's the crown? That is the Circle Church and Chancery we've been telling people about for years, and the Vatican. So the people didn't know that the Pope of Rome owned the United States.
What about all of these different ones? As you mentioned it before, I remember last year talking to a brother who said he met a modern European, and he's somewhere in the, maybe, I don't know if he's in the PA, New York, somewhere between here, PA and New York. And he had papers, and he says he has proof that he owns the United States. And we talked about how various through the years when it changes hands, or who has to sign the corporation papers.
That's called corporate secession.
So there's a guy that says that he owns the United States, but in that ownership, what does that entail?
If you're not talking about placing the United States in what you call failed state in secession, where you sue them and own their assets, that's one thing. But if you're a corporate successor, you have taken charge of all their atrocities.
Okay, so now
you better make that clear.
Okay,
it's dangerous. Because I also know a few people too that also have been trying to make that claim. If they own the United States, they own the White House type stuff like that. But it's based on suit, really, that
they filed.
Yeah, or that they're indigenous and they're taking claim of reversion. But you already know, still, while those claims are being made, you don't see any manifest action in the public.
No.
But yet people make that claim. But again, relative to the corporate secession in relationship to what we both know, the corporation papers. And the thing I also want to bring to your attention, and this is based on what you had shared with us actually for the last couple of months. City of Sherelle was actually founded by a hybrid European in 2016. I mean, in 1916.
1916.
Right? And keep this in mind. And one of the borderlines is what? Seneca Highway. And I know you got something to say about that. One of the border lines is Seneca Highway. Now, by you being somewhat loosely a historian yourself, immediately you start making geographical, political correlations that many people would overlook. Now, after that, and keep in mind, it was named after his son's, that's his son's middle name. So that's sort of like his political gift to his son, middle name. So he named the City of Sherelle Corporation, 1960, after his son's middle name. And so because he's a hybrid European under the Doctrine of Discovery, they want to preserve the legacy of the hybrid European son's name on the land over the Oneida Nation. When you look at it for what it really represents, you can see how absolutely corrupt it is. And if anyone allege on any front that they have any legal right to the land, past or present, it's clear that that's a fraud. Not only that, it is well known in the culture that we cannot and do not sell the land. So when they say or make the statement that the indigenous people sold the land, so now here's hybrid Europeans taking over your land, digging up some gold, and then giving your own stuff to buy your land, but they didn't give you no gold, if you get the whole point. And even if they did, it was already yours. And then you're going to sell your people out your land, your homestead, for them to steal something off your land and give it to you and say that they bought it, when the culture commands that the land can't be sold. The only obligation that we have as our Aboriginal of the land, because this is the customs and the culture, goes back thousands of years. Anything that we do under the tree of peace, right, or by the lake of waters, when we would meet and have considerations, we would do nothing in relationship to the peoples and the land without consideration of 7 generations down. And all decisions would be made on the 7. In other words, anything that would harm the land or the waters or the ecology with consideration 7 generations down after us, the determinations of what we would do or not do will be determined on the welfare of 7 generations away from us into the future. That's part of the culture. Now, so when hybrid Europeans talking about some hybrid European bought the land from Oneida Nation, on both sides there's a fraud. This is again why when you start doing research into the Bureau of Indian Affairs and you start talking about where state of New York bought land from the Oneida, number one, state of New York is a private corporation, is not a living. Number two, land can't be sold. Number three, then claim to buy the land, and now the people of the land don't have right to the land and they can kick them off. You see how contrary that is? I just want to throw that at you, get your thought process is moving in the direction that they're already moving now, and then do some analysis and also see why it's difficult to get our people mentally and politically to become active, because mentally they're disconnected from the land. They have no sense of ownership. Therefore, they have no sense of value or heritability, which was part of the design, mind you.
Absolutely.
And most people don't even think about that. And also, while the Pope was apologizing, like you were just saying, you don't see them talking about restoring the land, do you?
No, absolutely not.
All right, continue to make comment as you please.
No, but the point that I think was made when you received this Bolletino, and I think you all would want to know this, is that someone has been able, and you mentioned it kind of at the beginning, to use this as an exhibit in court, and make that argument, and basically as one entity, individual. I get mixed up as what we can call ourselves or not, but say as an individual, for lack of a better word, an heir to use it himself in his case. But just think, if we take this and use it as a collective,
exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
And back to what you're implying to Dr. G, the missed opportunities of recognizing that this is what we should be arguing, not racism and marching. And I'm saying to you again how our people have been diverted deliberately by both the politicians and their so-called leaders, when it's very clear this is the source of our injury. And we've been keep talking racism and skin color, right. And it's been the doctrine of discovery in plain sight.
Although it has been, it kind of has been directed to us, so one might misconstrue it as being racism. But then racism, when we don't understand it,
it's a controlled narrative.
We only understand racism as has the definition which has been given to us.
Now, and this is back to when you're talking to racism, now you're dealing with Carlos Linnaeus,
right,
and Frederick Johann Blumenbach, 1700s,
right,
of the paradigm operations of race. They created that platform too, just like they created the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And this is where the whole race argument that people are exercising today come from. And if you listen to people in general, they'll act like that has an ancient origin. But yet, if you mention Carlos Linnaeus, right, or Frederick Johann Blumenbach, just as a man, what did they do? As an example, if you're giving people a test, they would never, for the most part, except limited people or scholars, even tie the whole race paradigm to them. They don't even know its founding. So therefore, they don't know it's a mind control system of controlling the narrative of gentrification of the people. They think it's a nature issue.
The two men, and I apologize you all for not having their names, but I'll get them. The two so-called scholars who decided to
Did what they call a phenotype race game.
To make the to take over Seneca Village,
Yeah,
and create what we now know as Central Park,
had
to come up with a way of classifying the mental status of people. So not everybody that went under this classification, believe it or not, had brown skin or brown. They decided, because they had their own levels of undesirables that they considered they didn't want them to what do you call it, reproduce, and all that. There were levels of idiocracy and morons, so these two. I find it hard to believe that two men on their own, just of their own volition and of their own,
had the power to do that.
The power to go and set up all of these standards, and then go to a place where people, indigenous folks, had been living for years and years, and use that as a classification for either
and then get them off
imprisoning them, committing them to state asylums, or killing them.
Now, isn't it back to the Descasteries that were actually doing it?
The Doctrine of Discovery.
The U.S. Army that was doing it, but the people didn't relate it to the church, did they?
Absolutely not.
They thought that the corporate state was separate from the church, didn't they?
Yeah.
So the church was collecting taxes from the people. Instead of calling it a tax, instead of calling it a tithe, they call it a tax. But the people didn't know that the tax is a tithe. You see? And the church would hide behind the name Jesus when they're really Constantinians. And the army, the U.S. Army, same with the Trail of Tears, came from the Doctrine of Discovery. So when we talk about the Trail of Tears, what was it? U.S. Army. So the people didn't know that that's the Jesuit army, because they thought that the Jesuits was a society of Jesus people praying to Jesus. The Jesuit is a military arm of the Vatican. That's fact. It's not even hidden. But I'm saying that to say again, Dr. G, how things are right in people's faces, but they keep following the narrative that's placed before them by the corporate state, who are really the field operatives of the Vatican, part of the Descasteries.
I'm looking at one of the comments, and it said, okay, let me put up here. I don't believe they considered themselves Moors in that village, and they may not have. They may not have considered themselves Moors, but it doesn't negate. It doesn't negate the fact that they were, in fact, are indigenous people of the land, and they were people like us. I realized that not everyone called themselves a Moor.
They would basically be different Cushite tribes.
Whatever they called themselves, they were not Europeans.
They were not the hybrid Europeans.
They were not hybrid modern Europeans. And they were taken off of their land.
What happens when you start looking at the records? Like, say if you go into records, right? The archives, Gettysburg, right? And you start looking at Civil War, we're talking about the paintings of some of your most world-renowned painters of that era. And we're talking about as recent as the early 1900s. And you see the indigenous people look like us. And as you see later, they keep paling them out. Some of them were even darker than us.
Right.
When I look at pictures of my grandmother, my father's mother, and her family, the people will say, oh, they're the Indians. No, they were us. They weren't called Negroes then.
And they probably weren't called Indians either.
Exactly.
And they probably weren't. But in an attempt
to use the tribal names,
in an attempt to
and stuff like that,
be unified, we
went along with the game,
right? But even at this point, because we can argue who we called ourselves, what we called ourselves, what we were, but the fact,
history is what it is.
We need to come together, people. We need to find what is common ground for all of us, where we can
the reality of the experience.
What can we agree on that we need to address? And how can we come as a unified front, not fearful, shaken, like
Who suffered the
not
genocide?
being like Dorothy and the Tin Man and all them going up the yellow brick road, scared and realizing
Who, for the record,
you all know already who's behind the curtain. We already know who's behind the curtain.
Who, for the record, suffered the genocide?
We did. Our people.
There you go.
Our people. So on that alone, and I don't really I don't care what we call ourselves. I think it's important.
Traced, the record shows.
But I think it's important that we denounce the labels,
Doctrine of Discovery, and the labels that went with it.
Right. That's what we have to do.
And this is back to Dr. G. You know, when I said before, when the people, and this is why we need to look at like cases like the Dungeon case, the Dred Scott case, because they are direct cases that demonstrate what we've just said. But you notice this too. The people have learned to hate themselves so much that they keep trying not to be who they are. But they will adopt what are provably nom de guerre created by the colonists, like Native American, Native Indian, and things like that, which can be proven to not be who the people are, and that they were made of. You can find a beginning date when they made them up, whether you're dealing with 30s or whether you're dealing with the 1800s. They were provably created by European settlers, and our people adopted them. And you notice how they will adopt happily the brands that are proven, because we're not making this argument, we're just setting the record straight, that can be proven to have been created by hybrid Europeans who came here and start claiming the land under unum sanctum and the Doctrine of Discovery.
Yeah, I want to thank. Let me post this up here. Thank you so much, JM. The men, William Cullen Bryant and Andrew Jackson Downing, were the proponents of Central Park destroying Seneca Village. Like I said, it was just two guys. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
In other words, they're the sacrificial lambs for history's sake.
Right, but somebody was they were front men.
Yes. In other words, the same way they hide behind Calhoun and others, you know, with Seneca and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Calhoun with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, right? And now keep in mind, when he set up the Bureau of Indian Affairs, then the U.S. Congress years later came back and legislated to legitimize what he had done. But that didn't come from the Congress. These are fundamental issues, realities that people need to observe. But you notice how people keep overlooking those realities in order to justify our own corruption by going along with stuff that we know that's false, but because we thought we were going to get a benefit. And that's true.
I like this. So there's two comments in here, and I'm going to tie them together. So here's I'm going to highlight this and come back to this one. See if I can find it. Oh, darn, I want to give you credit. Somebody said, what can a single, oh, darn, you know who you are. Someone posed a question and I didn't, it's going too fast. What can a single person or individual do now?
See, this is the deal.
That's what they asked. And then I saw this statement that somebody made. So I'm going to put this up. Goddess Amani says, I denounce the labels in the Doctrine of Discovery. I am not African American or Black.
Thank you.
To me, that is a petition. That's the start. That is a petition.
It is.
That is a statement for a petition.
It is.
That right there. That one. That right there.
And they accept it, meaning that, you know, they accept the consent and then claim the ownership. See, because they're really collecting souls and estates. That's what they're doing. You know, this is where this is why they're declared dead. And this is back to Dr. G, where people really need to understand the operations of the ens legis. That when they agree to be these things, they become the straw man.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's a fiction. And it has a life that does not live with the people. It came about since European colonial operations, which means these phrases, terms no different than, when did our people so-called become African Americans? Jesse Jackson in 68. I mean, do you see the whole dynamics? And our people act like that's who the people are.
Yeah.
But yet they rather be that than be who the Romans attacked, which were the Moors. It's in their It's in their bullas. It's in the record. We're not talking about opinion. It's in the historical record. And the people hate themselves so much that they keep trying to be everybody or anything that would please the master and not be anyone that the master rejected under the wars of the
Check this
Crusades.
out. I'm gonna share, y'all. I shared a little bit from this book the last time. I believe this guy Peter, who has another appellation, has been disappeared, but nevertheless, this part about born again, a new perspective,
A new perspective.
a new perspective, born again. Upon our entry into the world, while mom is still recovering from the rigors of childbirth, she is compelled to submit an application for a certificate of live birth, that's a COLB, with the country and or state. Within a couple of weeks, a Sister QV trust is created. Your name is entered into the Book of the Dead, and the COLB is issued. That is the certificate of live birth. Your equal yet undivided portion of the divine estate, your divine inheritance, has been conveyed to the state for use to collateralize your good faith and credit upon which the state operates.
Isn't that unum sanctum
Well, okay.
and dum diversus clear?
Here we keep. Let me
Go
go on.
ahead.
The Sister QV Act of 1666, which was authored by the Vatican,
There we
states
go.
that if one has traveled beyond the sea, meaning beyond the realm or kingdom, upon application, they can be officially be determined to be dead, so that the heirs may do what they need to do with the estate. The creation of the Sister QV Trust via the application of the COLB allows the state to leverage your estate for their use and converts you from the heir
Isn't that
to a
assimilation?
beneficiary.
Isn't that assimilation?
Absolutely.
Then the Pope now trying to apologize in the Bolletino that they're rejecting that, but yet it's clearly it came from them, and they're trying to distance themselves from it. Now why? Because the world is turning on them and no longer accepting the private commercial paper of the Jesuit order, known as the Federal Reserve Note, placed as what is called the U.S. dollar in trade anymore. And so you see the economic collapse that's starting to take place now, with now even with Saudi Arabia, who from Nixon's time of the 70s
Was taking
would
the dollar.
not accept payment of oil
And anything
except
other
by
than
the dollar. Now that's no longer taking place. Now politically, when Biden went over there and started asking them for pumping more oil, and you see that when he went to shake the Sheik's hand, I guess he pressed the hand, right? And the Sheik did like this. Roll your fist up like we do in the hood.
What, like this?
This is what he did.
He did.
Now you already know that's a signal. That's not formal. I'm just saying how people don't pay attention to signals.
And that wasn't because of the thing, right?
Now, formal meeting of heads of state don't meet like this. Give me a pound. Yeah. They don't meet like this. Give me a pound.
No, they don't.
And, people, but again, I'm not even arguing that, because as it is right now, Dr. G, as these things collapse, the people are not going to have a choice. They're going to have to start being real.
Question. So as these countries are no longer accepting
the U.S. dollar,
what does that mean, say, for those of us who would be one of traveling outside of this jurisdiction to another country? What's going to happen?
They'll not accept the dollar in international trade,
even in a transfer, like
exactly.
Even if say it's on a credit card or a debit card.
This is why they're creating all these problems in order to cover up what's really happening. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I don't know what they just done.
Once you and this is back, Dr. G, and even as we have these conversations, because we're really trying to prepare the people to really recognize what their experience is and what is really behind what's happening to them now and what's happening to them sequentially, currently, and in the near future so they don't attribute it to something else that it's not.
Because what that's going to do is in effect, it's going to lock us in
Exactly,
to
because
being
they're
here, because if they're not going to accept the currency that we have anywhere outside of here, then you're limited as to where
exactly. Now you understand
you know
why
how, yeah, it won't be any good here. You can't.
do you understand
And
why they keep on creating situations where the people are so-called locked down to cover up the real reason of what's happening? Now you see the real reason why big box stores are starting to close up, and they're saying, well, we have to close because of shoplifting. All of a sudden, everywhere in the world,
it's having a shoplifting problem.
Yeah. And so now, and then they'll show you these scenes, and the cameramen just happen to be there. And then they'll have these people running in these stores and smash and grab. Very few get arrested. You know the whole pattern. They got cameras, right?
It's no different than those other things that they caught on camera that were happening all over the place.
Exactly.
With those,
Same thing with January the 6th.
They were doing things from windows of hotels and different stuff.
Exactly.
So we're not gonna say
we
that.
don't need to go. It's so obvious.
Y'all know.
It's
right?
so obvious. It's almost like, you can watch them play the narrative, and then watch many of our people who continue to do what? Defend the black codes. Now, but let's look at this, Dr. G.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Let's look at this.
This is so good.
It is.
It's mushroom.
All right. Now let's look at this, Dr. G.
Yes.
Isn't it very clear when you even see people starting to debate the identity thing, how it's necessary for the rest of the world to have moved on this, because we have been so hypocritical and betraying ourselves, and they can see if they don't do this, clearly we're not.
Yes. Somebody had a comment in there about, I think they said Bobby. I'm assuming they meant Bobby Hemmett. They said we're not from this planet, so why should we wear? And I agree. If we go way
now,
back,
even
we go back to the early
even that,
but we still got to deal with right now.
Now look at this.
We're going to where we came from.
You know what it's still. I'm not critiquing that.
No, neither am I.
Because when you look at our history, we've never hidden in our history our interconnection with other beings.
Right.
That's in our history.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, so that's not even an argument.
We just don't talk about it as much.
You know what it's sort of like, Dr. G? When I see people making statements like that, it's not a criticism of them or knocking the position. It's really what you would call a way out of not taking responsibility of the fire in your house where you're sitting, where you're in bed, and talk about, we're really from the dark side of the moon. So why are we worrying about our house is burning down? Why are we worrying about them killing Emmett Till? Why are we worrying about them killing Malcolm? Why are you worried about them lynching us? Why are you worried about them lynching our babies? Why are you worried about adrenochrome? Because after all, we came from Sirius.
Let me just say this. I personally have a strong interest in history and uncovering the cover-ups. Because you know that. I'm always studying, reading, buying books, looking at stuff. So that is my personal interest, but it's not the interest. I mean, it's not the matter at hand for right now. Right now, we need to be unified.
It's the psychosis of us still not wanting to take the responsibility of what? Fighting for our own rights in the states.
And we got to do it unified, Grand Sheik. That's the problem.
Yes, but remember this. One of the problems is that our people, by being so traumatized, it's clear that they're not willing to take responsibility of pushback here with those kind of statements. However, hasn't the history shown, as an example, our people will boast about the movie Red Tails, right? And history of Red Tails, where these Asiatics here flew those planes, right? Mm-hmm. And encountering, in contrast to the political operations of Jim Crow, and helped win the war against Hitler, right?
Right.
Now let's look at the memoirs of Hitler.
Didn't he say if it wasn't for them,
he said if it wasn't for the stove, he said Hitler said to Churchill, if you all take them stovepipes out the wall out the war, we'll kick your asses. And who was the stovepipe? The Moors, who are branded blacks and Negroes, who keep fighting the wars against their own interest and then come back marching and praying. And then upon the critique of their hypocrisy, well, we really came from another planet, so therefore we shouldn't worry about what's here.
Wasn't there another war where there was leaflets dropped and information?
The Vietnam War. This is what is known fact, and I can tell you myself, right? Because I didn't go. Because I told them if I know who the enemy is, and I didn't go.
And you didn't get on the plane.
And the plane crashed.
That's right.
And my good friend Muhammad Ali, same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Now this is the deal. Many of the Vietnamese and Cambodians, and you can ask a lot of your great grandfathers who will tell you. They would say to the brothers, "What are you doing here?" Mm-hmm. And many of our brothers, it still goes over their heads that they recognize us and we don't recognize them. We're so locked up in these black codes and cling to it so desperately to please the hybrid European masters and pretend that we're honorable, and we'll go around the world helping him to murder women and children around the world in their wars and come back here and act passive and justify our passivity. Like those statements, well, don't worry about them lynching us here because after all, we came from another planet. While the IRS is gentrifying your communities, killing your babies, breaking up your families. It's really a mental escape from responsibility. Because like I always said, Dr. G, the real deal about our people, when you study them and when you really begin to recognize how a lot of people from other nation states don't like black people, is because we're hypocrites. We'll be aggressively fighting wars for this man and then come back and act passive when it comes to our issue, or try to escape responsibility to rock the boat, as you might say. And those kind of statements really indicate that. But I think a lot of times our people really, because we're so caught up in our own Stockholm syndrome, we don't really notice how people around the world really view us here as being dangerous hypocrites. In other words, we are hostile, violent to women and children in other nations and islands in our war activities for this man, and even violent with each other in our so-called Crips and Bloods gangs all over the damn place.
Or whatever.
And this man can come here, rape our women, stomp our children in the ground, lynch Breonna Taylor, all this kind of stuff, and we march and pray. And when someone tells the real history of the Doctrine of Discovery, which is the politics beyond all this mistreatment, our people act like they don't even know the relationship. And what does this letter demonstrate continuously, even after the letter to Obama and the motu proprio? That is indeed the source of our genocide and misery and gentrification. And how many people still don't make the correlation, even when it's documented? It's documented. It's documented. And they keep trying to be somebody that they're not and are in absolute denial. However, when you look at this, you can see why other people don't trust, quote unquote, black people in America. Because they're hypocrites and they're dangerous. And this is also why a lot of people who have this information sell out. Why? Because our people's propensity not to take responsibility for our own hypocrisy against our own selves, but yet we look for the rest of the world to have mercy on us. And of course, when you tell the truth like that, then our people start saying, oh, you're against your own people. No, we're just telling the truth. But what we really need to do is recognize how others see us, but our egos get in the way. And us always trying to please the hybrid European, another way of saying master. So instead of saying master, they'll say white man, and pretend that they're not capitulating to whatever his narrative is.
Yeah, well.
No different than we could look right back behind us, right, doctor? Right? In any dictionary and look at black, right? And it's Middle English, right? 1100 to 1150 to 1500, and right in succession of that connotation, which is an adjective, right beneath it, it'll give you black and then hyphen or more and tell you any Asiatic or African man, woman, or child, and it'd be capitalized, and these people will still act like there's no relationship.
Well, you do also see more defined sometimes as dark, swarthy, and
well, that's
all
a description. That's an adjective,
right?
Right. So adjective is not a noun.
So you're talking about using the actual word black, which actually means pale.
As an
bleach,
exactly.
Black. Okay.
Exactly.
Because
and
then justify. Because that's where people argue that. They were like, well, more means dark, it's swarthy.
It means pale colors.
More, not black.
It means pale colors, etc. Right here in the dictionary. Go ahead, keep talking, Dr. G. Because it's back to the dictionary. And you know, like they said, and they have fun with us. If you want to hide something from these monkeys, put it in a book.
Well, I don't know, y'all. Let me just look and see some of their comments. Y'all having a good time in the comments. You know,
yeah, do your
thing.
Do
your thing. Just be respectful. That's all we ask. Just
be real.
Be respectful.
Get real.
Listen, traveling James said we have to reverse the Kingu spell. What spell is that? We have to reverse the Kingu spell.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, that's what he said we're doing.
That's what we're doing. And who do we have to fight? The heirs who keep trying to be somebody that they're not. Because of the sellout.
Mama Zike says, if you're not born in this country, how does one handle this?
But remember, the country is Morocco.
Regardless
the corporation is America. Okay. I mean, the corporation is the United States Corporation Company.
Right.
Which this is back to the psychosis of them promoting the corporation as a country. And isn't it back
I mean, like maybe somebody is in the UK or somebody's in the Caribbean.
Same thing.
They said, how do you handle that? We want me to read. Black amour is what he's highlighted.
Dictionary.
It says noun, offensive.
Offensive.
It says a black amour is offensive. A dark-skinned person, especially a person from Northern Africa.
And then what does it say?
Black plus a
it separates the compound word.
Black, plus a of unknown origin.
Which one
plus more.
Yeah, what is capitalized and what's
more.
Small case?
More is capitalized and black and
small case.
Small black is
lowercase.
Well, it's all caps, but it's smaller than the more.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's not like it's not there.
Yeah.
Now read this letter from Secretary Roots, 206. Right? Secretary Roots.
You want me to read it?
Yes, I want you to read it.
Oh.
Here you go.
Okay.
Read this. That's a letter from Secretary Roots.
Okay.
United States. Excuse me just a minute.
Okay, y'all. He wants me to read this letter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to read the letter. It's, sir, this letter was written, it's from Mr. Root, Secretary of State, August 3rd, 1906. American Legation, Tangier, August 3rd, again, 1906. Sir, there are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines. I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. 1. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized.
That's the 14th Amendment.
In or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire.
And what's the subject matter?
Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. 459.
Hold on. Then where do you say right there?
Morocco.
All right. So this is occupying this.
Okay, so
that's law. They're
right.
telling you that they're telling you the land, and then they're telling you the political jurisdiction on citizenship and expatriation.
I don't know. If, I don't know if I can.
It's there.
I don't know if it's. I don't know if they can see that. Let me see that part, y'all. So you can see
the point that I'm making. While that's not the subject matter.
Yeah, but just to see that
I'm showing you it's documented.
There
and
it is.
People keep denying that which is documented.
And this is in
treaty, Constitution, and treaty.
Yeah, Treaty of Peace and Friendship,
and Constitution that Obama talked about when he went to Egypt.
Yeah. And
telling their history.
Yeah. So.
So even when Obama's telling them and he's showing them their flag, right? That's documented. It's public information. And what do you have? People who are the descendants still wanting to be black Indians. But I'm not knocking them.
Right.
I'm just saying they will deny the record to defend fiction.
Most people haven't even seen that, unfortunately, and they need to.
Because they won't read.
Well, I mean, they don't even know it exists to read. I can't. Here's where you and I differ. Sometimes you make comments and you think wholesale everybody knows what you know, and that they're not acting accordingly because of some nefarious reasons. But sometimes people don't know.
Isn't that a dictionary?
Yes, it's a dictionary.
It's there. Hold on.
Y'all, sometimes people don't know.
They got degrees.
Stuff.
They went to school, don't they?
Not everybody, y'all.
Isn't that a dictionary?
Yes, it is.
Common dictionary, right?
Yes, it is.
It didn't come from Africa.
But then everybody gonna read the whole dictionary.
Words that they themselves keep saying is their identity.
Right.
You can go right in the back of the dictionary, not some historical anthropology. And look up. And what does it say? Black. This is black. This is origin. Bill, read it, please.
Oh, wait a minute. I got stuff in my hand.
I'm taking the stuff out your hand so you can help these people that have what you call mental dysfunction.
Now, see, he got me looking up Bill, but
which is the origin of the word black.
But if you didn't know that,
etymology.
if you didn't even know etymology,
yes, you can.
I mean, it's referred to. I guess.
Hold on. Okay. No excuses.
That's A.
So you got to stop making excuses for these people.
I'm just trying to.
No. Ignorance of the law is no
excuse. I know
Stop making excuses.
I'm just saying.
The world ain't tolerating this nigger problem no more.
We are not arguing, but everybody is not aware, is what I'm saying, of everything that you.
But they're going to tell you about gods and devils.
I'm not even aware of everything that you know.
So look at black. Get back to black.
Okay, here we go.
Here's black.
Okay.
Now, here we go.
All right.
The etymology.
Right. It's about this much.
Hold on. Yeah. Here's the etymology.
Yeah, African.
Third grade stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Here it is. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, y'all.
So, see Bill, right? There it is. See that?
After you read 27 different.
Well, that ain't even a page.
It's almost.
Stop making excuses for these people.
I'm not making excuses, but I want people to study. But I'm just saying somebody may not have done this.
Remember that the world is looking at us.
And if they, so you.
Why do you think they keep calling these people lazy?
So you go back here, and Bill tells you that important derivatives are blue, bleach, black, bleak, blaze, blemish, blind, blend, blonde, blank, blanket, blush black, fragrant, and flame. So get to shine, flash, burn, shining, white, various bright colors.
There you go.
And some other
That's
stuff.
what the word means. They'll tell you the ancient gods of Egypt.
If they taught, because they're not really teaching, but if they taught etymology, folks would know this more. I know.
That's third grade.
Let me tell you something.
Third grade grammar.
I learned etymology when I was in my 50s.
But this is the point that I'm saying, Dr. J.
And I thought I was smart.
We need to recognize is that it's uncomfortable when someone gives you a mirror, rather than debating with you or trying to overtalk you, show you the documents. That's basic grammar.
Okay. which was
grammar.
denied to a lot of people.
And they'll be saying pale colors power and don't know that's what they're saying to the world.
And
They'll be saying pale colors matter, white spot matter, and think they're saying something intelligent to the world. And then turn around, right? When the pale people took all the finances with George Soros, with the order that they set up called Black Lives Matter, and the whole world laughing at us to this damn day. But we keep pretending
we knew better.
to be so spiritual.
We're
better. Full of doo-doo, and people need to call us on it, and we need to stop sacrificing our generations and then feeling sorry for ourselves and then debate things that we don't even know what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And no one won't tell us that you can't read, Johnny.
Well, they never intended for us to get to have that.
We have to understand this, Dr. G.
Yeah.
While we sit around and making excuses, what we keep on doing, the world moves on.
Yeah.
So why we mad?
No, we ain't mad.
Oh, yeah.
We're not mad. We just want. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to help the people.
If you're tell them the truth.
Yeah.
There's the truth.
Yeah. Pull out the dictionary. Show them.
Please read.
Go to Edamon online and
please. The book won't burn your hand.
And look up stuff.
It won't make you blind.
But a lot of people grew up believing
that got nothing to do with knowledge.
It doesn't. But believing, I don't care whether it does or not. I know that it doesn't. But they believe nonetheless. They believe what they were told. They believe what they were taught. Now it's about clearing that.
That's why it says only a handful.
We are here to detoxify folks that want to be clear.
This is why it's saying a handful.
Yeah.
This is why they're saying, why are you all wasting your time throwing these pearls to these pigs?
Swines, yeah.
And then when they call these people pigs and swine, they're insulted. Oh, they're dissing the black man. We want to fight and march and shit. And then act like they're so spiritual. And see, nobody won't tell us to our face because we can fight. Everybody know we can fight.
Yeah, we can fight.
And so when they sit around, and then slander us, then we want to fight and don't even know, then turn around, I'm black and proud, which means I'm pale colors, white spot and proud. And they're looking at you like you just came from the dark side of the moon. And then we want to get all deep like we saw 2 pyramids in Egypt. And they laughing at us all the way to the bank, and then we want to call them racist and don't know nothing about Carlos Linnaeus and Frederick Johann Blumenbach that set up that paradigm that our people are arguing. If you mention to these people Carlos Linnaeus, Frederick Johann Blumenbach, and ask them, what do they have to do with your history? And our people will say, what you talking about, Willis? They set up that whole paradigm that our people keep arguing called race. A total mind-controlled fiction. And then they argue it and march and start a whole bunch of organizations and looking for somebody to contribute to it, and everybody else keeps going to the bank except us. Oh, please. This stuff...
It's not funny.
No,
it's not funny.
It's tragic.
It's tragic.
It's tragic.
But I'm saying we can... I love, how we can agree and disagree.
We need to know that while we're sitting around making excuses, the world ain't got time for our bullshit. And we need to just say it like it is.
Which is true.
Save the next... This is the whole point. If these people don't want the truth, at least save the next generation.
Absolutely.
Some of them.
Absolutely.
But you can see why the rest of the world has no compassion for these people. In the face of facts, in the face of documents, they will still support provable lies.
Absolutely.
Which is why I sent you to both what? International law, expatriation and citizenship in the United States. And it says you in the law, it's Morocco.
Yeah, it does that.
And it even tells you how the people lost their nationality.
Yes.
Blunt.
By naturalizing.
Then I send you to a dictionary and to show you who these people are. It's like this.
Listen,
why do you think no one feels sorry for us?
You see what I got running under there? Now, that's a good little segue for a minute. Because you were just down there at the school. And you talked about the children.
Yes.
The children need to be...
These people pretend that they love their children. But they don't.
But
they will sell them out for a watermelon and a check.
But I mean, putting them in back into these schools that are indoctrinating them
This
in
is
all
what
kinds of foolishness.
even we're going to have in the future again. Prime Minister Della Bey come on and talk about the Moorish school and why it was necessary. And the whole deal, even when, Dr. G, I wish that, because I know you're so busy and you're so, I know that you need 48 hours for every 24. I know that. Same with me, but people don't all know that.
Yeah, they probably look at me going, I thought she was having an operation.
Even when you had an operation, what did you? What are you doing?
You see that?
Jogging up the steps?
I did not jog.
Well,
I'm not jogging.
close to it.
I got.
Now look, we went around that building, and you did what? You come and you got what? Foot bandage up, but you still taking care of business. You ain't laying down.
We gotta do what we gotta
You ain't sitting back taking Advil.
Nah.
You still taking care of business. Now, but I ain't arguing.
We got it. But we talk about Prime Minister Della, bringing her on at some point.
Yes, and talk about the school.
How important it is to get our children.
And again, while we're talking, right? Please, you all, for those of you, because I know, some of the responses are proving what the hybrid Europeans say.
Right.
So we're not criticizing them. They keep backing him up. When they say, if you want to hide something from these monkeys, put it in a book. And what we keep proving, what he's saying is absolutely true. And rather than deal with reality, they defend their beliefs and their feelings that have no foundation in history whatsoever. However, back to point. Please, you all, while we're talking and Dr. G is analyzing the Pope's excuse and semi-apology and trying to blame what they did on Christ, because that's what they're doing,
right.
And now trying to distance themselves from the bullers that they created that caused all of this injury against these people, indigenous people, and admit it. And our people are still talking about human beings or crayons. It's sort of like what the hybrid European says and members of the Klan say. They keep consenting. And as a matter of fact, when Kanye said it, they did what? Who tore him a new hiney? Our people. When he said our people keep consenting to slavery. And they took it as an attack.
Well, see, folk ain't
and
happy.
He's talking
why they're not happy.
Because they believe the hybrid before they believe their own. And soon as he and Kyrie and others start doing a little research, and what Wesley Snipes and anybody that start doing the research find out who they really are, they got blackballed and attacked.
Well, if you saw my last show with Priestess Amina L, she went through, y'all. If you didn't see that show, you need to go back and look at that. But she went through every zodiac sign
exactly
and attributed it to us as a nation, and so what you just said about Ye and Kyrie and all that. So when you start at Aries, right? Mm-hmm. So Aries is knowing. I'm not going through all of it. Knowing thyself. Exactly. So once we first get our Aries going in progression, as the way the zodiac wheel goes. Start at Aries, know thyself. You get the next one. I think is Taurus. Taurus is the finance. So she said a lot of these athletes and stars and so forth, they got Taurus, they skip Aries, they got the finance, but they don't know who they are. Exactly. So they don't know that they need to be putting into.
And then look at the history. 90% of them, and this is the history, grow older and before they're dead or killed off, are broke. And our people still haven't put on.
Because the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
And who are the lords? Lords of London.
And they take it away.
Under the Inquisition Revenue Services, known as the IRS, Doctrine of Discovery. It's interesting, and I, a lot of people ask me over years, how am I so patient dealing with these people? Why don't I take the payoff like a lot of people do, live a comfortable life, travel the world, and have a bunch of women and live my life comfortable? Because I just can't sell out. But when you look at some of these people that sell these people out, who are arrogant in their ignorance, you can understand not justify it, why a lot of people just give up and sell out. And then our people complain, yeah, they sold us out. You sell yourself out.
Right. Right. Well, you came in, with a mission. You'd already, where you were, why you were here, and you hit the floor running. Some of us a little bit slower, but we're on the path.
But didn't Drawley say this? He's our come for the young and the yet unborn.
And see, I think
the old can go if they want to, which means half of these people don't even know they're going to be sacrificed politically, economically, and physically.
Well, listen. I don't know if it was us, but
King Alfred.
Listen to me. I heard Dane Calloway speaking like a week or so ago. It says somebody sent him a tape of this older couple, and I was like, he couldn't think of who they were. I said, I wonder if it was us. We are senior citizens, but we are elders, right? But we are youthful, and we don't want to
sacrifice no more generations.
Yeah, we want to inspire and those that are younger to do what it is
to study, to start reading.
Right, start it. Know yourself. Get your Aries
yourself
together.
Now look at that. Even as you're saying, right?
Right.
When the empress came and even shared the cosmo culture, when you look at the operations of the popes of Rome, what were the major issues that were before the Council of Nicaea, i.e., to counter Arianism, which is the cosmo culture
but that's
of the Asiatic nature.
And of knowing.
It's right there.
We are right here now in the age coming in. Some say we're not there yet. Some say we're getting the energy of it. But the Aquarian age is
coming into know.
Is the word as the age of I know. We're coming
know.
Out of I believe, and that's
also,
the problem.
We keep on defending I believe.
I don't.
But yet the same books that these people keep saying that they're part of says what? The people are destroyed by the day for lack of knowledge.
Says, and not just lack of knowledge. It says because they have rejected knowledge.
Exactly. That's in the Quran.
Knowledge.
Yes.
Well, that's in the Bible.
Yeah, in the Quran too.
Yeah. So it said, the people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, for thou hast rejected knowledge. It's not that knowledge is not around you,
and
but
the
if
Quran says Allah will reject those who reject knowledge.
But there is so much cosmology in
which is the culture,
right? In what?
See, that's the culture. That is the culture.
Well, they took a lot of the Bible stuff
who
from
did. The hybrid Europeans who became their God.
The ones that
the hybrid Europeans are known as the Negroes' God. They won't buy, they won't sell, they won't move unless without the mark or the number of his name or license. And then pretend that they have loyalty to the prophets, which they do not. And they get upset when the world says it or throws it back in their face when we keep playing victim. When we're not so much the victims that we claim to be. We're hypocrites and we're dangerous to the world. And some people are sacrificing their personal lives to try to wake our people up to recognize that this stuff is real. The plan is to exterminate these people. And they keep thinking if they go along to get along, that the hybrid European is going to embrace them and give them some Negro reparations, which is not going to happen.
Yeah.
So they keep going along with what they know in their heart is the programming.
What if you have a green card?
That comes under the Naturalization Act, which was talked about in that's what that's expatriation.
Yeah.
That means they even need to know those classifications. But then if you have a green card, you have a nationality. Don't say that you're a light-skinned green person, do they? It states on there the nation state that you come from. And in treaty with the United States.
A lot of folks are white.
Yeah. Hey, most of these people come from Asia, Africa, etc. You'll see on their passport white. It's a status. And our people keep thinking it's a complexion. They don't even know the rules of international law and are always talking shit. Now I'm being blunt about it. But understand the rest of the world is tired of this nigger problem. It's your problem. You better start solving it because they intend to remove you from the planet, in case you didn't know that.
Wow. We don't want that to happen. So
they're tired of this nigger problem. We're trying to help solve it, but you don't have to accept the truth if you don't want to. But if you think you're going to remain on this planet and continue this nigger problem on humanity, you got another thought coming. And that's not our opinion. That's the white man that y'all keep calling your God. That's the truth.
Are you angry? Somebody thinks you're angry. Are you angry?
I'm angry that our people keep sacrificing the generations, then marching and praying about what they themselves keep doing.
Are you tired?
No, not really.
I just thought I'd ask, since we asked him questions, I need to feel him out, y'all. Make sure. Listen. We coming up. We got 10 minutes left, and we got some. Listen, we gonna pick this back up. But we do have some things coming up. Y'all like this, right? On the
honest conversation. We need to have honest guess what? Because this stuff it ain't hitting the fan. People got polka dot wallpaper. It ain't hitting, it's here.
Yeah.
We need to stop. This is what we need to do. Okay. And this is what you've always said. At the same time, while you always say it, Dr. G, we still have a tendency to fall for it. We need to stop being politically correct and start just telling the truth. That's why when you tell the truth, they start putting you in YouTube jail.
Yeah, they do. They don't want you to tell the truth.
And the deal, people keep acting like they're telling the truth. No, we're hypocrites. But what we need to do is stop sacrificing generations to being politically correct.
Yeah. Well.
And then starting another organization to deal with the symptoms of the problems that we keep feeding into.
Yeah.
Just because we're punks and cowards, except when it comes to little women and children in other countries and with each other in our communities. And then when it comes to the Romans that keep screwing you, we want to march and pray and play dumb. Well, you're not dumb, and the world don't accept that. You're just punked out of your own birthright and keep making excuses. And the world don't feel sorry for you.
No, not a bit. Not a bit.
So you need to stop faking it.
Are you going to pick this up on the 30th?
If you want.
Listen, y'all. On the 30th, don't go anywhere, because y'all tend to, when I start to give announcements, y'all get all funky and leave. We just tell the truth now. We have live in person. You can see Grand Sheik and myself up close and personal at the House of Real Awakening Minds. Normally it's on the 4th Friday, but this month only it's going to be on the 5th Friday, which is June 30th, from 7 to 9:30, which is loose because last time I think we got out like 1 o'clock in the morning, but 7 to 9:30 officially. You can come to the House of Real Awakening Minds. There should be information on our website with regards to that. The other thing that we really, really want y'all to do is, you can see us here. Hey there. It is for our upcoming up close and personal event that is going to be Friday, July 28th through Sunday, July 30th. It's a 3-day event. We had a good time. The last time we celebrated Minds and Abundance Child Soul Return.
Oh,
but this time,
that was fun.
But this one, listen to me. This is why it's important. Soulful Summer Gathering and Strategic Planning Retreat. We have a 12-hour day on that Saturday, which includes breakout sessions and planning. The stuff that we're talking about here that we can't really, really, really talk about here. We're going to be breaking up into groups for strategic. You can see me here so that we can do strategic planning and come out with somebody. We have a facilitator for that part, and we are going to do some really concrete, putting our heads together, finding out who we are, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, how we can do what we need to do, but we're not going to do it on this here live, y'all. But you will do it at this event. Then we have on the Sunday, like we did last time, it is our holistic day. We start out with an awesome walk, like about a 3-4 mile walk that to a beautiful park, which I wasn't able to go last time, and I'm hoping that my foot is healed enough that I can do it. Well,
the way we just trotting around here today, I mean,
till I drop something
look
on
like
my
you're
foot.
going in that direction.
Yeah, we'll see. My toes and stuff.
That's because you eat good.
we're gonna start out with this nature walk, because that's my thing, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna have holistic and those kinds of things. We have some entertainment on that Friday night and so forth. We're gonna have a good time on the first night, and we probably will have a speaker, just a keynote, but the main stuff is gonna happen on Saturday all day. So it's from 11 to 11, 11, 11.
Yes.
So here's the important thing. It's 75 notes for a single ticket, but if you buy 2 tickets at the same time together, you can get it for $120, which is saving $15 a ticket or $30. But that goes away after June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's early bird. So if you and someone else is gonna come, buy your ticket together as a 2 ticket, save 30 notes, and come and be with us July 28th through the 30th. I know you might not want to see me, but I know you want to see Grand Sheik, right? And we always have a good time, good food, right? We had
always
good food, good time, and we're able to gather.
Meet a lot of people from around the country.
People from all over. We don't, and we need you to get your tickets, because we're gonna cut off the tickets because we can't hold all of y'all. We have a limited number, for space wise that we can accommodate. So when we
and plus, you people start talking about it after you send out the messages in other countries,
right?
So you have an opportunity to also start, if you're willing to start communicating with people from other countries.
Yeah, so we want you to come. We want to see you. We want to get up close and personal with you all. And of course, as always, we want and we just want you to stay connected. If you have not done so, we want you to join our website, because on our website you can get all kinds of information. It's running under there, up-to-date information, exclusive access, when we do things that we do that we don't put on YouTube, which when we do those non-YouTube things, we need y'all to click on. The experience is exactly the same. It's just that we're not on YouTube or Facebook. We're just in our private area, and you can chat just like this. So don't think it's something that you can't maneuver. It's just
and the other deal that you have the opportunity to learn is that you start learning that other people around the world who wouldn't necessarily talk to you already knew this stuff. And they're wondering why it's taking y'all so long. Now, one more time that I want from your perspective.
Okay.
Because this comes from the Citizenship Manual of the United States.
Okay.
So the Citizenship of the United States Expatriation.
That's what I read already.
459, 460, right?
I read all that.
Morocco, right? Now, I want you to read this again and analyze this. Number 1, citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the law pertaining to the same in other countries. It means these principles are universal.
Okay.
With the exception, now they're giving you an exception, that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship. That means you have to prove it, not your opinion, or protection, are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. That means if you can't prove foreign citizenship, ipso jure is a law term, which means as the law stands, you're a Moorish subject. That's the United States.
But
they're not teaching that. Why? Because they're holding the people to servitude that our people keeps calling slavery. That's why this is not exposed to you. But it's in the record. We're just sharing with you. Take it or leave it.
We are not subjects. We are more citizens.
But no, you're not citizens. You're nationals.
Nationals of Morocco. So subjects are these folks making pretend that they're Americans.
This is why they keep saying they're Americans even when they're not.
They are the subjects.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please read the letter from Pope Francis to Barack H. Obama, civil orders. Then make your comments. And if you don't get it then, you probably never will.
Right. Well, listen, y'all. We so appreciate you all for tuning in. I'm gonna be giving three of these books away. So 3 folks gonna get one of these books at the event. And maybe I'll have more by that time. I don't know. But at least 3 of y'all gonna get this book. Unless you just go and get it yourself right now. because who knows, they might stop printing it. The more it
Mhm.
seems like every time we announce something, tell folks,
Yeah.
and then I mean,
All of a sudden they disappear.
all of a sudden they don't have it no
Or
more.
they ain't got it.
But what is this? Taj and Dr. G, what does success look like for us Moors on a unified front?
See, remember, I've always said this, and I'll say this now, Dr. G. When you start looking at the dynamics of our communications, because we're really just sharing.
Right.
So we don't take criticism as negative. This is, because you got to examine everything. But you got to look at this honestly and realistically. The Moors are coming together on common ground, because common ground is common law. But if you don't know common law, you're going to learn it, because everything is going to collapse. We're going to come together not because information's not available. You know how people keep saying, how come they don't teach us really? We're giving them the history, and people are still debating, document. All right, now, they're going to come together, like I always said, Dr. G, not for lack of information, not because some people ain't telling us. They're going to come together out of PAIN.
Pain. Oh my.
Pain.
We don't want to get to the part.
Well, it's the truth. We got to be real. We're trying to reason. We're sitting down trying to reason together with the few who are still reasonable, to try to limit the bloodshed and limit the distortion and limit the miseries that we're going to go through to learn. We can't block it. We can't stop it. We agree. But what we can do is limit it. However, if the people still don't want to honor their mothers, we can't argue that. They have that right. But there's a consequence to that. And we're just simply sharing this information on the House of Reawakening Minds to try to mitigate or limit the unnecessary suffering. We're not going to stop it. We admit that. We can't. But what we can do is, for those who are willing to be called by their father's name and stop being hard-hearted and rebellious and have their nation robbed, what it says in the book, you robbed me of a whole nation. No, we didn't. It wasn't our fault. We didn't do that. And he said, yes, you have. You robbed me of a whole nation of people, and you put your name on them as a curse. But I will slay thee and call them by another name. You're in that storm right now, in case y'all didn't know it. They're going to come together out of pain. And what do? In order to try to maintain this BS, they got together, even with the UCCs, and blackmailed the representatives of Texas. And that's when the commercial codes became uniform commercial codes in '68. And then some of your major holders of servitude moved their estates there in Texas, etc., and started hiding the history even of Cinco de Mayo, of which we were participants, and our people still don't know that. However, if they don't think that the ancestors are angry, how about the wind that just went through there? And you ain't seen the last of nothing yet. Like whoever said, am I angry? I've been trying to hold it back the best I can, because I don't want to cast no spells. But if you think it ain't no wizards here, I'm telling you, you're sorely mistaken, and the bullshit is no longer going to be accepted. And have a good evening, too.
What a way to end. What a way to end. Okay. Well, listen, y'all, the 30th, come on out to the House of Reawakening Minds in Wilmington, Delaware. We want to see you. We are grateful for those of you I think we had them for last time. Well, it was Indianapolis or something, Indiana. A couple that came, and people came from all over. But come and if you can't do that, definitely you want to get your ticket for July. Then you want to be a part of the planning. You want to be a part of planning our future and putting a model together for unification. We're going to be working on that on the 29th.
And I'll make just July. One interim statement. We don't want any harm to come to anyone, but I'll say this right now on this show this night. Watch the next couple of days and watch the South. Then when you come next time, we'll discuss some of these things if you think the ancestors aren't angry.
The rains.
Pay attention. Listen, to the elements. They may have a gun, But Mother Nature don't play. And if you think she's not awakened and that she's not preparing to cleanse this planet, I think you need to pay attention. And so things are going to be brought to you now and in the near future to show you that she's awakened.
I never talk about my
Oh,
oil.
yeah.
Listen,
I was
y'all.
looking at that and I was thinking about that.
You know what, y'all? And this is a shameless plug for
because it is what it is.
It's my hair cares. Y'all, if y'all
See that pretty face right there? Right there.
Look, I done lost the
There
weight.
we go.
But you need to get yourself some of my hair cares. Yes, you do. You really do. Yeah, let me hear.
It's Dr. G, and I'm so excited to present to you my new hair and skin oil. Dr. G's Hair Cares and Skin Too. Yes, it is a wonderful blend of oils that are beneficial to the skin and the scalp. Yes, it promotes and protects hair growth. It also nourishes and hydrates the skin and the scalp, and is paraben and sulfate free. It has a fragrance that is neutral enough that both women, men, and even children can wear. And it is all natural. So listen, if I were you, I'd get my bottle today. It's a 4-ounce bottle. We'll ship it out to you. Not sure how long we can keep this in stock. So I would check the link and purchase some today. It's going to be your new favorite go-to oil for the hair and the skin and the scalp. So get some today. Dr. G's Hair Cares and Skin Too.
Since we're at it,
Yeah, look, y'all.
do what you used to do for us years ago.
What was that?
Give us the hair care poem.
Oh, y'all want to hear my? Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear it. Come on, y'all.
Oh gosh,
All right.
I'm gonna have to do this extemporaneous. I don't have a book. Okay, y'all. Okay, don't go nowhere. We still got at least 800 folks. Only 15 people
All right,
left.
come on.
Y'all, some of y'all know this. This is in my book, and I don't have it there. But here we go. Let me talk to you about it. No, stay here.
Talk to me.
Let me
I'm
say.
looking for the book.
Remember, I don't need
Go
it.
ahead.
Remember the time when the only thing on our minds was how long or straight our hair was?
Yep.
So much so, we do anything to get more.
Mm-hmm.
Even buying fake hair from the corner Asian store.
You know how it is in the hood.
We couldn't see our true beauty. No one really did. So we valued each other by the hair on our head.
Mm-hmm. Self-esteem.
But not just our hair, but our skin and features too, because a standard was set that we tried to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
Male and female.
Yep.
We bought the lie, L-Y-E, put it in our heads,
Yep.
not realizing years later many would be dead from the very thing we thought would make us so much more.
Ain't that for real?
We became victims of a chemically waged biological war.
Mm.
We didn't know our true worth. So some thought they could score.
Yep.
Manufacturers, they began reeling us in more and
And
more
more.
with your hair needs more shine and your hair needs more swing, and we got just the product that can do the darn
damn
thing. But now we realize that we are of royal stock.
Yep.
And true beauty suits us to a T.
Like for real.
And the lips, tits, butts, and tans that some have to buy, those are things we get for free. And we are through with relaxers and products that burn. And we're proudly wearing our hair natural because finally it's our turn to rock our locks, twist outs and froze, and even our little wash and goes. Does anyone else see the transition? Can you feel it in the air? That after all these years of chemical bondage, there's been a revolution in hair cares. And that's it.
Have a good evening.
But listen, let me say this. You see, when I wrote that poem in 2012 and I talked about we became victims of a chemically waged biological war, today, every time you turn on the radio, they're saying if you put a perm in your hair or whatever, they're telling you now that cancer and fibroids and all that has come from the stuff we put in our hair. See, y'all? So listen, that's in my book. So if you want to get a copy of that, I think I still have a few copies of that left, but that's called Hair Cares. That's my signature poem. Love you all. Thank you for letting me cut up here with Grand Sheik. And Grand Sheik, thank you for letting me come from behind the camera.
Yeah, because the people want that.
I thought they just like hearing my voice in the background.
This is what the comments I've been getting from people, not only on this side of the world, but even a couple people from the other side, right? that they enjoy it because we're just having conversation and it comes out real because it's not constructive. We're just being honest.
Yeah.
We're not saying agree, we're analyzing. We want you all to do the same. But what we do is we try to give you documentation of history so that you can shed how you feel and get real with what's real.
Oh, he said, somebody said, hold the book up. I normally have a copy right there. Y'all, it's usually there. I don't know where. I think they're down at the House of Reawakening Minds. I don't think I have it. No, that's not my book. It was there, but I don't think I have any. But anyhow, I do have links on the well, you would on PayPal, but I have to share the link. It's not there.
I'm just looking.
I took it down. Y'all, next time I'll be giving the link for the books. The book is 15 notes, and that includes shipping. So, anywho, we thank you so much. Thank you so much, and I thank you. I thank you for
Have
all
a grand evening.
the prayers and positive energy, because I thought I was going to be down for like 9 weeks. Y'all know this is like week 2, and I am feeling like, not too bad for what I've been through.
Well, you kind of jogged up them steps today.
I didn't jog.
Close to it.
I got 3 disconnected toes. I didn't jog.
Almost.
All right. We thank you. They say he's still mad about Bobby. Who's Bobby? Who's Bobby? Who's Bobby?
Oh, that's I'm not mad about that.
Who's Bobby?
Bobby Hammett, my buddy.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
He's one of the best metaphysicians around. We're just simply telling the truth about brands and nom de guerre that our people need to know about.
Thank you, Cool Karma. She said, love that spoken word. Y'all two make a great team. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. And all of you, like I said, but thank you all for your prayers and the positive energy. I only took a couple of the Percocets because I don't like that stuff, but somebody called me up. Two more said take arnica tablets, and I ordered some arnica 30X by Highlands, and it's taken down the swelling, it's reduced the bruising, and it's also reduced the pain. And so I'm really grateful for your positive energy, and it's working.
And we love you all. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah. So
we want it better for all of us.
Absolutely. So we out of here. Let's let my daughter sing us out of here.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.